Wailmer is one of my favourite Pokemon of all time. It's round, it's goofy, and it's not very good competitively. In fact, it is so bad that across thousands of teams, across so many tournaments, it has only been brought a grand total of 5 times, but it gets so much worse. Between these 4, they literally only won 2 rounds out of 10. There has only ever been one success with Wailmer, and it was me at the 2023 Sydney Regional Championships. So, how did I do it? And actually, why did I bring Wailmer? The truth is, I didn't go into this tournament with any intention to win. In the lead up to Sydney, I had a really big few months, so I didn't have a lot of prep time, and I decided the day before, you know what, I'm just going to go in with the intention to have some fun. The problem is that this was famously the least fun Pokemon Go meta of all time, all thanks to 3 Pokemon: Noctowl, Lantern, and Trevenant. With their powers combined, these 3 formed the perfect rock, paper, scissors triangle, where Lantern dominates Noctowl, Noctowl destroys Trevenant, and Trevenant crushes Lantern. If you and your opponent are both packing the 3 amigos on your squad, you might literally lose the game on the team lock-in screen if you make the wrong guess about your opponent's lead. So you might think, well, just run something else. Don't run this RPS triangle. But what you have to consider is that if everyone else is running Noctowl, then you need something to counter Noctowl. You could run Galarian Stunfisk, which not only has super effective Rock Slides for Noctowl, but also super effective Earthquakes for Lantern. Maybe you can take out 2 out of 3 of the big triangle. But not so fast. Not only does Lantern have super effective Surf damage to throw right back at Stunfisk, but Noctowl, if you have a high attack stat, can actually flip the Stunfisk matchup with a Wing Attack Breakpoint. The truth is, Lantern is just the best Noctowl counter available, while also having coverage for the other meta Pokemon like Galarian Stunfisk, and this goes for the entire triangle. As a result, the big 3 picked up regional titles all over the world, with 13 of the last 13 regional winners packing at least 2 of the 3. And this is what set the stage for the Sydney Regional Championship, where everyone would be trying their best to try and core break the big 3. And Wailmer, well, it doesn't beat any of them. It takes super effective damage from grass, it takes super effective damage from electric, and you might think that Noctowl could be a ray of hope because Wailmer has the super effective rollout. But wait, no it doesn't, because Wailmer didn't get rollout for another 2 years. So seriously, why did I use Wailmer? And the truth is, Wailmer actually served a very important strategic value in this tournament that I would not have been able to perform as well in without it. I just didn't know it yet. To be honest, I just wanted to bring a meme pick. Something funny, so ridiculous that it was basically like I was running a team of 5 with a hand tied behind my back. And I thought about Pokemon that would literally be unusable, like Ditto, which you literally cannot bring into battle in Pokemon Go. And it was also legal at the time to register on your team. It's not anymore, but it was back then. But I decided to go with a Pokemon like Wailmer that was technically usable, so that technically my opponents did have to spend a few seconds at least thinking about it as they picked their team of 3. And in retrospect, man, I'm so glad I made this call. Alongside Wailmer, my team consisted of 2 of the big 3, Noctowl and Lantern. But without Trevenant, I would need to get some Lantern coverage elsewhere. I started with Galarian Stunfisk, who on top of having play into Lantern and Noctowl, also acts as a bit of a bodyguard to Noctowl from a lot of its counters, like Registeel and Alola Ninetales. Speaking of Alola Ninetales, it was on my original team build for Sydney, especially after I ran it to top 16 at OCIC earlier that year, because it really just does help to counter both Noctowl and Trevenant, but in the end, I decided I needed to make room for Wailmer, so Alola Ninetales got cut from the team, and I might regret this later. I also brought PvP mainstay Metacham, not only to counter other Galarian Stunfisks, but also to give neutral coverage into Lantern, and while it isn't the best matchup, also has some play into Noctowl. So we have a team of 5, but for all of the attention that Wailmer gets, it's easily forgotten that I actually had 2 pretty insane picks on this team. Shadow Alolan Muck was also on this squad, and to describe how radical this pick was, 4 people brought it to tournaments in the first month of its release, and it has literally never been used again, ever. Between the other 3 of them, they only won a single match, and so again, this Sydney run is the only successful run in history for Shadow Alolan Muck. But Sydney was the first tournament that it was legal for, so technically we didn't really know how it was actually going to land on the actual battlefield. On the train to Sydney on the morning of the tournament, I was watching this video from Swag Tips talking about how Shadow Alolan Muck could actually be a really good safe swap in this meta, and personally, I agreed. With Dark Pulse as a relatively quick and solid damaging move, I gave it Acid Spray, which has a 100% chance of reducing the opponent's defense, but does very little damage, so you're really hoping the opponent wastes a Protect Shield. High risk, high reward. Obviously, as a dark type, you have a great Trevenant matchup, but also as a safe swap, you can actually outpace a lot of the opponent's Pokemon, and you can get some pretty big damage in with Dark Pulse, or at least soften them up with Acid Spray for your next Pokemon. It can also actually flip the Medicham matchup sometimes, which is pretty nice. But as I said, this regional was for funsies. I brought 2 wacky picks, I had no plans, no strategies, no real prep. I was expecting to just go 0-2 and then just go have some fun. But as you'll soon see, I developed a strategy during the tournament that actually worked insanely well. Round 1, I sit down and I am immediately regretting taking Alolan Ninetales out of the squad because my first opponent has Shadow Dragonite. And I don't have a single answer to this thing. With Dragon Breath, Dragon Claw, and Superpower, this thing beats my entire team. I'm completely lost, and so it tears through, and I take my first loss in round 1, 1-2, meaning that I'm instantly in the losers bracket from the very start of the tournament. If I lose one more battle, then I will just be out of the tournament, 0-2, and that is it, which, to be expected. But I got a bye to losers round 2, and this is where it starts to get interesting. I'm up against Alvajara, who has that Noctowl Trevenant combo, as well as Bastiodon, Medicham, Registeel, and Sableye. And I start to realize that because no one else has actually looked at the Wailmer matchups, they're taking it a little bit more seriously than it should. And to be fair, this was also in the closed team sheet era, meaning that my opponents knew what 6 Pokemon I had, but I didn't have to tell them any of the movesets. And so if you didn't already know what moves Wailmer has, which really no one did, then all of a sudden you might be just thinking and really worrying about it that it actually could be really good. I know it isn't, they don't know it isn't, and so all of a sudden I actually have a very powerful Pokemon. And if you look at my team, you're a bit worried about Wailmer, you're looking at Lantern and Medicham, what Pokemon on Alvajara's team beats all 3 of those Pokemon? Trevenant. And if they're really relying on that Trevenant as a Pokemon that can beat Double Water plus Medicham, then all of a sudden, I can start to build a strategy around this. I'll use something that's weak to Trevenant in the lead. Maybe Medicham for the Bastiodon Registeel coverage, or maybe Lantern to try and get that Noctowl. But say that I don't get that Noctowl lead. Say that I actually see a Trevenant in the lead instead. This is good news for me, because I'm going to swap into my safe swap, my Shadow Alolan Muck, ready to counter that Trevenant, and they're obviously going to run away. They think that this is my Trevenant counter. But lucky for me, I have another one up my sleeve. I have a Noctowl just waiting in the wings per se, ready to try and hard counter that Trevenant later on in this matchup, where it doesn't matter if they have shields, it doesn't matter if they have energy. The Noctowl versus Trevenant matchup is so good that if I can make that happen, I will win the game on the spot. And this strategy works. I win round 2 with this classic AVB shenanigans using Noctowl and Alolan Muck as a sort of a double Trevenant counter in the back, and it just works. Now, I wish that I could show you the footage. I wish that I could show you the battles, but unfortunately back in 2023, we didn't have broadcasts for Pokemon Go in Australia, and so unfortunately, you're just going to have to take my word for it. And the strategy kept on working. I beat my next 2 opponents who were both playing in their first tournament, and then found myself up against Golf Professor 27, who was running the big 3 alongside G-Fisk, Ninetales, and Shadow Swampert. But again, there is only one Pokemon on Golf Professor's team that beats all 3 of that Double Water Medicham combo, and so again, I'm running the same strategy, and again, it works. It's a much closer set, but I'm now 4-1 in this tournament, only 1 win away from the top 8 with a Wailmer, which is just crazy. Loses round 6, and I'm up against Bragio, and wouldn't you know it, he's got that Trevenant. All according to plan. I still remember the final moments of the last game where I had my Noctowl farming down his Medicham and he just wasn't swapping into his Pokemon in the back. And so I just looked up, said, "It's Trevenant in the back, isn't it?" And he closed his eyes, he nodded, and I knew that Wailmer had just made itself into the top 8 for the first time ever. In just insane, it's just a ridiculous scenario to be in, but I thought it was so awesome. Not because I was doing well, not because I was on the hottest tournament run I've ever been on, now 5-1, but because Wailmer was going to be in a top 8 graphic, because at the time, Ghost Stadium was making these top 8 graphics to sort of show off regional top 8 teams, and all of a sudden, they were going to have to make one with a Wailmer on it, and I thought that was awesome. But the thing about the losers bracket is that it is a constant battle. The tournament was running hours behind, and the limiting factor is always the losers bracket. Because I lost my very first battle and have been playing in the losers bracket all day, I've been playing non-stop. As soon as I finish one battle, the staff tell me what table to go to, I sit down, and I immediately play my next game. It is just go, go, go. And this is why going to the losers bracket straight away is basically a death sentence, because you have to play twice as many battles as someone in the top half of the bracket, in the winners part of the bracket, to actually make it to the top. In Sydney, no one else that lost in their very first round, that went straight to the start of the losers bracket, even made it to the top 16. And here I was, 5 wins in, 1 game away from actually getting into the top 6. So going into losers round 7, I'm up against Franadamus, and again, I don't know how it keeps happening, but the strategy keeps working. Maybe it's because they had a Charizard, and so they were extra scared of the double water, and so Trevenant just needed to come, but the strategy works. I ABB my way through, and Wailmer makes it to the top 6 of the Sydney Regional Championships, meaning I'm playing for a spot in the top 4 against Anacore XIII. Now, Anacore, our games go a little bit different. I use the same strategy, but game 1, it doesn't work. I lose. Game 2, I play it again. It works. I get the win. We go into game 3, and all thanks to an acid spray bait that gets a shield out of Anacore, we actually finish game 3 with a simultaneous KO, a tied game, meaning that we have to go to a game 4 to decide who is going to progress in this tournament. And look, I really try, but it all comes down to a 50-50 call in the end. I have to predict whether Anacore's Galarian Stunfisk is throwing a Rock Slide bait, which I'll be able to take on the chin on my own Stunfisk, or if he's throwing the super effective Earthquake that will end my tournament run and I need to shield. I make the call. I decide he's going to go for the bait here. I use no Protect Shield. The Earthquake comes through and my Stunfisk goes down, giving Anacore the 2-1 victory over me in the top 6, progressing on to top 4. And you know what? I think that's awesome. I came into this tournament expecting to go 0-2, and instead, I'm walking away with a top 6 finish, with Wailmer as the ultimate Trevenant bait, Noctowl as the ultimate sweeper, and Shadow Alolan Muck as honestly a really amazing safe swap. Honestly, this was my dominant triangle, the real big 3 at the Sydney Regional Championships. Unfortunately, back in 2023, there was no prize money until you hit top 4, and you also didn't get any championship points. They hadn't introduced that system yet, and so all I really got was this top 8 mat and a really cool result. And you know what? That's good enough for me. Massive thank you to my Patreon and YouTube members for making videos like this possible, and a massive thank you to you for watching. If you do like this sort of content, please do go subscribe so that you do see this sort of stuff in the future. And with that said, I sort of have to go prepare for the World Championships, I guess. So if you're looking for something else to watch, I mean, you can click one of those things. But yeah, I guess wishing me luck for the World Championships. See you then, guys. Bye.